Welcome back to Session 4 of the JA Career Success Program. In today's activity, you are going to meet the table tense, the soft skills self-assessment worksheets, the interview bookmarks, and the career success toolbox envelopes. Today's activity is all about soft skills and technical skills and interviewing. And so what the students are going to be learning about today is the soft skills that make so much of a difference in interviewing as well as in just key performance in life. We want to show the students that they are developing these skills today and they are going to be transferring to their future workforce in the future. The book walks you through some talking points in the introduction to lead a discussion regarding the difference between technical and soft skills. Please bring in personal experiences of the difference for the students as well as to use some experiences that they understand. One thing I always like to do in my personal experience is that when I worked at a water park, I was always trained to hire people that had good soft skills. For example, I could train somebody to make a hot dog, which would be the technical skill, but I couldn't train them to smile and to be courteous to our customers. So I was always encouraged to hire for people who had the soft skills of customer service, friendliness, positive attitude, etc. So that's just one example on how I would introduce the topic because that links to a personal experience that I had. The actual activity today is going to be done in a couple different parts. What we want the students to first do is to understand what some of those soft skills are and where they can grow and be challenged to work on skills in their lives even today as high schoolers. So you're going to distribute a soft skills self-assessment worksheet to each student. And what you're going to do is you're going to have them work independently to consider these various soft skills and to honestly ask themselves whether it is a strength of theirs, if it's a weakness of theirs, or if they're really not sure and they need to do a little bit more research. Encourage the students as they're filling this out that it's okay if it's a weakness. It's okay if they're not sure. Even as a volunteer or as a teacher, there are probably skills that we need to work on even in our adulthood. So help them to really understand that it's okay to take this honestly. It's not something that they're going to turn back into you, but it's a tool for them to really consider what are some of the areas in which they can be working on. The final column allows them to write down some personal experiences that would highlight or show why that would be a strong skill or weakness in their life that they can fill out as well. So what you want to do is you want to allow the students the opportunity to have about 5 minutes to fill out this assessment, and then what you can do is highlight whole group, a few of them. I wouldn't go through all of them due to time, but allow some of the students to answer which ones they feel are maybe their strongest suits or maybe some of the ones that they need to work on more. The next part of the activity is going to allow the students to have a greater look at interviewing skills. And so what the students are going to get to do is they are actually going to get to do mock interviews. But in order to get to that point, the book suggests that you do a little mini role play with the classroom teacher to demonstrate some of these key skills. What we want to show them is that technical skills and soft skills are important, but they also need to be able to communicate those to a future employer via the interview. The book suggests that you and the teacher role play the difference between an interview question where they would answer a yes or no question versus expounding on it with an example. So role play with your teacher, give them the heads up at the beginning of the activity or during your last session, remind them or let them know that you would like their help in this. But for example, a potential interviewer, and you can role play this with the teacher, they could say, "Do you feel comfortable acknowledging your mistakes?" The way that's worded, it really is a yes or a no question. But what would set you apart in an interview is if you were to expound on it with an example. So role play that with the teacher and allow the students to see an example of how that would look. Also, as you're starting to talk about interviewing, please use the back side of the worksheet to talk about some of the do's and the don'ts of interviewing. Set the students up for success and talk through some of these, giving as many personal examples as you can to these different tips. Some of the students are going to have had jobs and some of them may not have had them at this point. It depends upon which high schoolers you're working with, whether you have freshmen or seniors, etc. So I always like to ask them, what are some of their experiences? What are some of the examples that they have, whether they've heard about it from someone or whether they've experienced it on good interviews or bad interviews. I think we've all had those moments in life where maybe we know we didn't have the strongest answer or maybe the strongest interview. And so once again, this is a great area for them not to just learn about interviewing from your successes, but to also share some of the failures that you've experienced or that you've seen or that you've heard about, so that the students can talk through some of those varying forms of interview do's and don'ts. Before you start the mock interviews, we would encourage you to do a couple role plays as a large class first. You can either do these by asking your classroom teacher to participate, or you can ask a classroom student to help you, or if you're team teaching or you happen to invite somebody from your company in the HR department to come with you, there's lots of different ways to do this. But first of all, make sure that you talk about the importance of arriving on time and doing a proper introduction for the beginning of the interview. So role play what an introduction might look like. Also, use the sample interview questions found on the bookmark as an example to what the students are going to be doing in their mock activity. This bookmark talks a little bit about the soft skills that are very beneficial for interviewing specifically, and then the bottom portion has sample interview questions. You can choose to use these questions, or if you would like to, you could potentially bring in some interview questions from your company, but this is a resource that the students can use in their mock interviews as we move forward in the activity. Before you go large group, I would encourage you to do a sample mock interview. Whether you decide to do a good one and a bad one, or just the good one, it's always great to set an example for the students. What you're going to do for the actual activity is have the students get into groups of 2 or 3. The book suggests that you do 3 so that you can have one person conducting the interview, one being the interviewee, and the other being a coach. We have experienced that the students are more engaged if you take out the coaching role and instead have the students pair up so that everybody is working with a partner to be the asker and the answer of the interview. What you can do is every 2 or 3 minutes have them switch roles, and you could potentially also have them switch partners throughout the activity. What I would encourage you to do is have them introduce themselves every time they switch partners, because that will be a great practice for properly shaking hands and introducing themselves, even though they know each other more than likely in the classroom. After you have the opportunity to allow them to do the interviews, we would encourage you to once again ask them what some of the strong points of interviewing are, what are some of the weaknesses, what are some of the questions that they have. This is often a topic that they're very interested in, because it is definitely something that if they haven't already experienced, they will be experiencing it within the next year or 2. If you have time, we would encourage you to also include a mini conversation regarding business attire, and that can be found in the Extended Learning Opportunities section at the end of this session. This will be a great way for students to get to ask some additional questions, and often clothing is often a question and a topic that the students have a lot of questions about. As you wrap up today's activity, once again, have the students fill out their career success toolbox, and they can put their skill assessment as well as their bookmark in the toolbox so that they can reference those in their future. Enjoy session 4.